welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. Today we are in February and we are going to be doing my favorite video of the month, and that is our TBR game video, so that we can choose which books are going to be on our February TBR. I always get so excited about this video because I cannot wait to see which books I'll be reading this month. Before we get started with the game though, I do want to thank everyone who has been watching my videos, who's watching this video right now, and everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I definitely appreciate all the support. Now, before we roll our first roll of the game, we are going to add a little something additional to this whole TBR game, and that is a monthly challenge if I don't complete the previous month's TBR. So I've come up with 11 challenges, which are over here, which each month we'll randomly choose one that we will do for that month if the TBR for the prior month is not completed. And as we are already in February, I can definitely say I did not complete my January TBR. I got close. I did read 5 out of the 7 prompts there, and I was reading the last 2 prompts at the end of January, so I didn't get through The Eye of the World or The Lady of the Rivers. So I wouldn't say in the middle of each book. I'm in the first 200 pages though, so that's something. So let's see what challenge we are going to do for the month of February. Again, all the challenges are up here. So there's 11 challenges that I've come up with. So let's bring up a random number generator. So here's our random number generator. We got 1 through 11. So let's see what we're going to be doing for the month of February. And we got 10. So for 10, we are going to be playing a game called Time Guesser. So for those who haven't played Time Guesser before, it's a fun kind of like daily game that you can play on the internet. So how this works is it shows you 5 random pictures, and for each picture you have to guess the place it was taken and what year it was taken in. And how we're going to use that for our game is that we'll choose a random day, play Time Guesser, and choose one of the 5 pictures, and whatever year that picture was taken in, we have to read a book published in that year. So I'm excited for this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll make a little video out of it and see how it goes. All right, so now that we have our challenge done, it's time to move on to our TBR game. So let's pull up our game board. So here's our game board. All right, so let's roll the dice. We rolled an 8 and see what we land on. And we land on a penguin. All right, so we did our first roll of the game. It was an 8. We landed on the penguin, which is this bag over here. And this is the best of the 4 bags in my opinion, because it has our seasonal prompts, our monthly prompts, and our astrological sign prompts in it. So I guess it's time to choose our first prompt of the game. All right, so for our first prompt, we got this one, which says, read a book with a shadow on the cover. So I've never really looked at covers looking for a shadow. So let me go through my TBR cart and see if there are any books that actually have a shadow on them. I'll be right back. So it was very hard to find a book that had a shadow on it, but I did find one. If you can bear with me, this is The Bear and the Nightingale. If you look really closely, you can kind of see a shadow coming off of the woman that's walking towards the cabin. So we're going to go with this book. Again, this is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is the first book in her series. I have read it before and I enjoyed reading it, but I want to get to the rest of the series. And since it's been so long since I've read this one, I figured we'll start at the beginning and then I'll make my way through the rest of the series. It is set in Russia, based on Russian folklores. And it's set in the winter time, which makes it a great book to read in the winter time. So the basic plot of the story is that Vasilisa's father ends up going to Moscow after her mother dies and brings home a new wife. And then all this bad stuff starts happening to her family and the community that she lives in. So we are going to add The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden as our first book in February. So now we got to look at our electronic books and see if there are any books over here that have shadows on them. So I was able to find 2 books that had shadows on them. And the first is Alone, which you can see up here. She is also walking away and there's a shadow behind her, so that meets the criteria. So Alone is by Robert Crane. It's book 1 in his The Girl in the Box series. It follows Sienna, who's a 17-year-old girl who has been held prisoner in her own house by her mom for 12 years. And then one day her mom just vanishes. Sienna wakes up to find two strange men in her house, and now she's on the run. And while on the run, she now discovers she has all these mysterious powers and is being pursued by this shadowy agency known as the Directorate. And she's also being hunted by a psychopath named Wolf, and both of them want her for their own purposes. So that is our first option, Alone. Then our second option is I Must Betray You, and again, if you look really closely, you can see a little shadow following the guy who's walking away. So this book is by Ruta Sepetys. So it also happens to follow a 17-year-old. This 17-year-old is called Christian, who is living in Romania and dreams of becoming a writer. It's set in 1989, and at that time, Romanians aren't free to dream. They're living under kind of rules and force. And Christian ends up being blackmailed by the secret police to become an informer, and now he only has two choices. He must betray everyone and everything he loves, or he can use his position to creatively undermine the evil dictator in Eastern Europe. So that is our second option. And because I am trying to limit the number of new series that I'm going to start this month, we are going to go with I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. And we will add that to our February TBR. All right, one book down, 6 to go. Let's do our second roll of the game. All right, so for our second roll, we rolled a 3. And that lands us on another penguin. All right, so we rolled a 3. We landed on the penguin again. So let's get our second prompt for the game. Got a yellow prompt. Oops. Which is a seasonal prompt, and it is a book that takes place in a winter wonderland. So obviously winter wonderland can be taken several different ways. So let me look through our TBR list and see if I can find a book that can be considered to be set in a winter wonderland. I did find a book set in the winter wonderland, and it's actually called A Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. It's a very bright book, so I'm going to hold it down here. And it's a book that was on my January TBR. If you saw that video, you know that I really love this book and I usually read it every winter. I did not get to it in January, so I'm hoping to get to it this month. It starts off in England, but then the main character has a tragic thing that happens to her, and she ends up moving to northern Scotland for the winter time. And there she meets a whole community of people who are each going through their own difficult times, and they kind of help each other through their circumstances, basically. So it's a really kind of cozy, sweet book. So we are going to add The Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher to our February TBR. So now we have to find a book up here that is set in a winter wonderland. So there's not a lot of books I have on my TBR cart or my TBR board that are set in winter wonderland, but I did find one. It's a romance book. It's called Sweet Haven. It's by Shirley McCoy. It's book 1 in the Home Sweet Home series, and on the cover you can see snow and trees that have snow on them, so I think that meets the criteria of winter wonderland. So this book is actually set in Washington State, and it follows the Lamont family who's makes these irresistible handmade chocolates, and they're a cherished tradition and always a reason to celebrate. And now Adeline Lamont ends up having to run the family store because her grandfather was injured, but she can't get the legendary fudge recipe quite right. And she now also has this new tenant named Sinclair Jefferson who's just stirring up the pot. So from there, it becomes a nice little winter romance book. So we are going to add Sweet Haven by Shirley McCoy to our February TBR. Right, so we got some romance, we got some fantasy, we got some just contemporary fiction, and some historical fiction. So we're doing pretty well here. We got a pretty good variety. So let's see what we can do for our third roll of the game. All right, so for our third roll, we rolled a 4. And that takes us to the hat. So for our third roll of the game, we rolled a 4. We landed on the hat, which is this bag here. So we're choosing from a new bag. There's the hat. This bag is very bright, so I'm going to hold it down here. This bag has our cover prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and some series prompts. So let's choose our third prompt of the game. So we have a cover prompt, and it is a fully neutral cover. So covers with colors like black, white, gray, or gold on them. So let's see what we can find that meets that prompt. So I actually found 2 books that are neutral, have neutral covers. The first is Spellbreaker by Charlie N. Holmberg. So this book has some white, some gold, some black. So all the neutral covers are on here. This is a fantasy book. It takes place in a world where there are 2 kinds of wizards, those who can cast spells and those who break them. It follows orphan Elsie Camden, who is a spell-breaking wizard and ends up having to solve a mystery before it's too late to save everyone she loves. So that's our first option. Our second option is The City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This is the first book in this series. You can see that there are some grays, again, some golds, some blacks, and some, I guess that's also gray. So this is also a neutral cover. And this book takes place in the 4 realms, which converge on the City of Dusk. The 4 heirs to the 4 realms end up having to become allies in the quest to save their city. So this is, again, like a fantasy book. The 4 main characters are a elementalist, a necromancer, a soldier, and a shadow-wielding rogue. So I think out of these 2, I'm actually going to go with the City of Dusk. I know I said I didn't want to start too many new series, but I have been wanting to read this book and kind of, since I bought it, and kind of see what it's like. This book is definitely a little bit on the thicker side, but the plot seems interesting, and it's plans on being a trilogy, so at least it'll only be a 3-book series. So we will add The City of Dusk by Tara Sim to our TBR list, and now we have to look at our electronic TBR, see if there's any neutral books over there. So I was able to find a electronic book that fits this prompt. It's the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and you can see on the cover over here that the colors are black, white, and gold, so matches our neutral color tone that we're going for. So this book is a fantasy book. It's been a pretty popular series, and the latest book just released last month in January. It's about a kind of secret society where only 6 uniquely talented magicians are selected each year for initiation. So it's the first book in, I think it's a trilogy. So either way, whichever book we read for this prompt, we will be starting a new series, but at least both of them are just trilogies. So we will add the Atlas 6 to our TBR list. All right, so we have 3 rolls down. We have 4 more to go. So let's get to our 4th roll. All right, so for our 4th roll of the game, we rolled a 5, and that lands us on the hat again. All right, so for the 4th roll, we rolled a 5. We landed on the hat again. So let's grab our prompt from this bag again and see what we get. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is a illustrated cover. So that's pretty simple. I love this prompt because it's always easy to find a book that matches this prompt. So let me take a look and see which books we're going to choose from. All right, so I found 2 books that had illustrated cover. Well, obviously I found a ton more books that had illustrated covers, but I've narrowed it down to 2. The first is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer, and you can tell that this cover has been illustrated. This is the 2nd book in her Cursebreaker series. It kind of takes this inspiration from the Beauty and the Beast series. I won't go too much into the summary since it will kind of give away what happened in the first book, but I really love the first book in the series, and I'm looking forward to reading the next. So that's our first option. And then we have Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amelia Wen Zhao, which is, I think this is the first book in the series. It's obviously a fantasy book and a very beautifully illustrated cover. And this book takes place in a land where there is no magic, or where magic has been outlawed, but the main character comes to realize that she can wield magic. So those are 2 options. I think I'm gonna go with A Heart So Fierce and Broken because I do really want to get to finish this series, and so I can check some series off my list so I can start new ones. So we'll go with A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer for our 4th book. And now for our electronic book, I'm actually going to go with Dear Haiti, Love Elaine by Micah and Marisa Moulite. So this definitely has an illustrated cover. You can probably see it better up here. But this is going to be the book I'm reading this month for my Around the World challenge. Each year, I choose a random country for each month in the year, and then I have to read a book that's either written by that author, or that's either written in that country or is by an author that is from that country. So obviously my country for the month of February was Haiti, so I need to get this onto my TBR. So this book follows a girl whose extended family is from Haiti. She's growing up elsewhere, and one summer she gets the opportunity to go to Haiti, and she ends up kind of learning about her extended family and the betrayals that have happened in her family, as well as a family curse. So this is the book we are going to go with for our 4th electronic book. So let's add this one to our TBR. So we are officially halfway through. So we have 3 more rolls to go and 3 more prompts to choose. So let's get to our 5th roll of the game. So for our 5th roll, we rolled a 4, and we landed on the tree. So for our 5th roll, we rolled a 4 and we landed on the tree. So we're going to choose this bag. This bag has plot prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and some series prompts. So let's see what we get for our 5th prompt. All right, so we have a miscellaneous prompt, and it is read a book with a Goodreads rating of a random number. So what we are going to do is we're going to spin a wheel with the different Goodreads ratings on it, and then we will find a book that fits into that Goodreads ratings category. So as you can see, we have different ratings on here. So for example, if it landed on this rating, we would have to find a book that was rated between 3.6 and 4. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what we are looking for. Ooh, so we got ratings between 4.1 and 4.5, so that's going to be good. All right, so we got Goodreads ratings between 4.1 and 4.5, so that's great. We're going to get some popular books to read, so let me take a look at my TBR cart and see which books fall between those ratings. All right, so I looked through a bunch of different ratings for the books I have. A lot of my fantasy books ratings did happen to fall between that 4.1 and 4.5 rating, but we already have quite a few fantasies on the board, so I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So we are going to choose The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This has a Goodreads rating of 4.19, so it falls right in between the 2 numbers that we needed. So this is a kind of young adult mystery book. It follows 17-year-old Cassie Hobbs, who has a natural ability to read people, and it just so happens the FBI is beginning this classified program where they're going to hire exceptional teenagers to crack infamous cold cases, and Cassie has been invited to be part of that program. So what I've heard about this book is it's kind of like Criminal Minds for teenagers. So I love criminal profiling and I love watching TV shows on that, so I'm excited to read this book and see how it goes. So we're gonna add The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes to our TBR list. All right, so now we gotta find a book on our electronic TBR list that meets that rating. All right, so I looked over all my TBR books that fall within that rating range, and I chose one. It's a historical fiction book. It's The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. It starts off in World War II, where Cyril Conroy ends up getting some luck, and he makes this big investment that allows him to start this enormous real estate empire, and that propels his family from poverty to enormous wealth. And with this money, he ends up buying the Dutch House, which is a estate on the outskirts of Philadelphia. And the book is told from his son's point of view, Danny, when him and his older sister Maeve, they end up being exiled from the house where they grew up in by their stepmother. That ends up throwing the two back into poverty, where all they can count on is each other. And the book is set over 5 decades, and it's described as a dark fairy tale about 2 smart people who cannot overcome their past. So that will give us a historical fiction book to put on our TBR. So we will go with The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. All right, so let's do our 6th roll of the game. All right, so for our 6th roll, we roll a 5. And that will put us at the tree again. So for our 6th roll, we rolled a 5. We landed on the tree once again. So let's grab that bag and we will be choosing our 6th prompt. Like 5 in my hand. All right, so we have another miscellaneous prompt. And it is finish a book you didn't get to last month. So what we are going to do with this is instead of saying finish a book that you didn't get to last month, we're going to say finish a book that you didn't get to in your 3 previous TBRs. So let me take a look and grab a book that I didn't get to in my previous TBRs. So I found a book that's going to be very familiar to people who have watched my previous TBR videos. It's a book that I still have to get to, and a book that I really do want to read, and it is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in her Throne of Glass series. Obviously, Sarah J. Maas is a very popular author. I've yet to read any of her books, and I really do want to get to them just so I can kind of see what I think about her writing and about her books. So we will go ahead and add this book to our TBR list. And then we are going to choose our electronic TBR as well. All right, so for our electronic TBR, this is another book that people will be familiar with because I think I've chosen it a couple times, and it's The Black Griffin by Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon. This is the first book in Mercedes Lackey's Voldemort series. If you look at the Goodreads recommended order of reading, I've read I think about 4 or 5 of her books, other books in this that set in this world, and I've enjoyed them all. So I've been meaning to go back to the beginning and kind of read through the whole series. It's a very long series. There are several series set within this world that you have to get through, but I am excited to see how all these different books are. So we're going to go ahead and add this one as a book that was on my prior TBR that I didn't get to. So The Black Griffin by Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon will be our 6th electronic book. And with that, that leaves us with our 7th and final roll of the game. All right, so for our 7th roll of the game, we rolled a 7. That is going to take us all the way around the board, and we land on the penguin. So for the last roll of the game, we rolled a 7, which took us all the way around the board, which I think is the first time that has happened since we started this game. So that's exciting, but even more exciting is we landed on a penguin, which means we get to choose our last prompt from the best bag that we have. Let's choose our final prompt of the game. Got 2 prompts, one inside each other. All right, so we have a monthly prompt, and it is read a book with red, pink, or white on the cover. So that should be easy enough. Let me take a look and see which book we're going to go with. So I think we're going to go with the December Fairy Loot book, and that is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. So there's definitely red on this cover. You can see it right there, and a little bit over here with the butterfly. So this book is actually set in, it starts off in Buenos Aires, and then the main character ends up traveling to Cairo, Egypt when her parents disappear. And that was the last place that they were known to be. And in Egypt, the ring that she is given by her father starts to flare with ancient magic. So it's a fantasy book. So What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez is going to be our final book for the month of February. And then all we have to choose is our final electronic book. So for our final electronic book, we're going to go with Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a very popular series. It's a kind of like a dystopian / science fiction series. This is the first book in the series. I've had this book forever. I bought it when it first came out, and then I never got to it. Then all of a sudden this book became like super popular, so I figured I should probably get to reading it at some point. It's set in Mars. It follows a man who is living underground, thinking that he's getting things ready for the surface to become compatible for life, only to find out that there's already a whole society living up there. So we will go ahead and add this as our 7th and final electronic book. It'll be Red Rising by Pierce Brown. All right, so we did it. We have completed our February TBR. There are a lot of good books on here, and I think we've got a pretty good variety of books. So let's go through the books and see what our final TBR looks like. So for a book with red, pink, or white on the cover, we have What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. For a book that I didn't get to in a previous TBR, we have The Black Griffin by Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon, and we have Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass. For a book with a Goodreads rating of 4.1 to 4.5, we have The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, and we have The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. For a book with an illustrated cover, we have Dear Haiti, Love Elaine by Micah and Maritza Moulite, and we have A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer. For a book with a neutral cover, we have The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and we have The City of Dusk by Tara Sim. For a book set in a winter wonderland, we have Sweet Haven by Shirley McCoy and Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. And then last but not least, for a book that has a shadow on the cover, we have I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys and The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So that concludes our February TBR. I'm really excited about this list of books that I have to read. There's so many books on here that I've been wanting to get to, like The Naturals, Throne of Glass, and The Winter Solstice. And I think we have a good variety of genres to read from too. We got some fantasy, some historical fiction, some mystery and thriller books, so I'm excited about that as well. If you have any thoughts on the books that are on my TBR, or if you have any ideas of books that I should add to my TBR cart, please leave a comment below. Also, if you have any ideas about any challenges I can add to my challenge list, please leave those comments below as well. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see more by me, please hit the subscribe button. And otherwise, I will see you later this month with a new video. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.